Buongiorno, good morning, and welcome to Accademia Italiana. Today we have the honor to have a very special guest and friend that I have the chance to work with some years ago, and it's a pleasure to have Sara Sozzani here with us today. Welcome Sara, welcome to Florence, and welcome to Accademia Italiana. I met Sara as a journalist, but I realized straight away that she's far more than a journalist. She's a, how do you say in Italian, militante? I don't know, anyway, but she's totally dedicated to activist, yeah, in a way. A talent activist, in a way. And since I met her the first time, I saw her in every fair, in every school, in every moment where she could discover something new or get to know someone who had an idea, and making questions and getting curious and make a huge archive in her mind and in her heart of what's next and and I think I will start from a simple question. So, what, according to you, what's talent? What is the talent? Maybe it's an easy but tricky question, but feel free.
You said it was an easy question.
Sorry.
No, well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Always happy to speak to students and kind of also, absorb your energy. That's why I always work with young designers or young creators, because I really like to listen to your stories and to your vision. So, I mean, to the question, what is talent? I mean, there's not really like a specific answer to this. I think talent can be expressed in many ways. First of all, it doesn't have an age, talent. And I do think that, when you're in school at your age, I think you're between probably 21 to 25 or something, more or less. And I always say, students, especially when they finish, first the university, maybe some of them decide to do a master, and when they come to the master, maybe some of them are completely not linked to what they're doing as a master course. Maybe they study for fashion, but then they were coming out from architecture or other disciplines. I always say that I think you're in a range of age where you start at 20 with something that you're interested in, and then after 3 years, your mind changes so many times. And I always think that it's fine. It's not a problem, because especially if you decide to work in an industry such as fashion, I mean, creativity is really large, and that the connections to do things which maybe are not perfectly linked to what you are studying. It doesn't mean that if you're studying fashion design, you need to be a fashion designer, but it can become many other things which are always linked to the fashion industry, or even since the fashion industry is linked to culture, art, movies, cinema, and everything. I mean, there's many ways of expressing. So going back to talent, I think today it's very important the vision and messages you want to give throughout your project, which could be a brand or maybe a project or a platform. And it's really the message you want to give, because we were speaking right now before about how it's important to be responsible right now. I never use the word sustainability because it kind of lost its meaning. So I always say it's about responsibility towards the planet, the community, the people you work for. And I think that's fundamental for you as a young generation that are finishing school. Each of you will have different experience, who's going to go and work for designers, who maybe decides to work with their parents, or maybe go and study somewhere else, or decide to do your own project. But it's fundamental that whatever you do, the first message is that you want to make a change and you want to be responsible, because it's not just a matter of your project, but your project will have an impact in the world. So it has to have a positive impact or a positive message. So I think this is what I see in talent. And talent, for sure, it's also someone that doesn't have the fear of showing his or her creativity, so being bold and not afraid to express themselves. And so this is more or less what for me is talent, which the definition of talent for me kind of changed throughout the years, evolved. Not it changed, but evolved, because obviously our social community has been changing so fast, especially in the last few years. So the meaning of talent is kind of always in evolution.
And speaking about the platform that you created, which is Vogue Talents, how did it start, and what was and what is your need or your will?
Well, it started in 2009, and it was now it doesn't exist anymore because London has changed many things. But my work hasn't changed, so I'm bringing my know-how and support to the new generation in different ways. Well, the reason why it started is because I started working really young when I was 19. I was given the opportunity to start at Vogue because Franco Sozzani at the time was editor-in-chief, and I was someone that at 18, 19 didn't know really what to do. I mean, I had always a family working in the fashion industry, but it wasn't where it's not where I didn't want to go there, but I was not even thinking of working there. It was just a matter that I started studying. I wasn't such a brilliant student. I didn't feel like to study much. So I wanted to work. So first thing I turned over to my mother. I said, okay, I'll begin to work with you. And she just had opened Tempo Sugomo after 6 months. I'm just telling you this part just to explain you why Vogue Talents has happened. And then after a few months, I thought it was a little bit too early to work with the parents, so I just asked Franca if she needed an intern. So that's how I started in fashion, which I didn't know anything about fashion. I was not even so much interested, but it was about doing a working experience. And I started there in 1994, which probably most of you were not even born. And I was lucky enough, already double lucky, already being there. But it was the 30th anniversary of the magazine, so I was like locked in an archive for like 6 or 8 months, and that was my school. Because there I absorbed the fashion, the photography, the magazine, the images, and everything. And then my kind of other question, how long did your internship lasted? Probably 6 or 7 years. And it was different timings, but I had the opportunity to work a little bit on all the segments on the magazine. And I focused then myself in fashion. I was assistant of stylists such as Anna and Alice Gentilucci, which were the stylists at that time. I managed to go on sets from Helmut Newton to Steven Meisel to Peter Lindbergh, all the photographers that there were at that time. So it was, for me, an amazing school. I then became stylist myself, which was really my really not interest, but it wasn't so bad but not so good. It wasn't what I really liked. But then when I was assistant stylist and then I became stylist myself, that's where I began to do research and scouting, because when you prepare a shooting for someone, apart from asking clothes that she asks for you, you do research, to integrate accessories or new things, just to have a kind of a wider range apart from the outfits you request from designers. And there it began a little bit. There began my passion. I really liked to see new things, and at the same time there were two things that I saw happening in Italy, but especially worldwide. That in Italy there was no space for the new generation, because especially in fashion there were these big brands, and all those new designers that were coming up, they were really struggling to have a space and a voice. And this, I saw it also internationally. And then, this was what I kind of noticed. And then throughout my research, we had two supplements of the magazine that was more dedicated to trends, where we obviously put images of the advertisers. But then I usually went around with my camera to scouting, and I usually came back with so many images. And I remember my deputy editor-in-chief saying, who are all these people? So it became bigger and bigger, and then with Franca we founded in 2005 Who is on Next, which is a contest in collaboration with Alta Roma, which is still going on after 16 years, where it was created to support Made in Italy, which at that time was struggling, and from there came out all the new designers of Made in Italy, from Accademia Italiana, CGM, Marco Rambaldi, and many others. And so after continuing to bring all these new designers and creatives, Franca, who always really believed in the new generation, said, listen, we have to do something more specific, more that people see. And so I said, yeah, let's call it Vogue Talents, and this is how it began. And it was mainly, for me, the reason of doing it, which is still the reason I'm doing it now, is because I had the opportunity that someone opened the door to me. And so for me, giving back and opening the door to the new generation, I think it's fundamental, it's a responsibility, and I think it's needed. So this is the reason why I decided to create Vogue Talents, especially pushed by Franca that already had a very strong vision on that. And so now, even though Condé Nast has changed a lot, which is normal, evolved, but I'm not interested anymore about the direction they are taking. And so, with my know-how, I always do the same thing. I've been doing it for the last 15 years, but since I work with many different platforms, from the non-fashion chamber, with fashion schools, and other platforms, I still do this. And this is mainly my passion, my life, and what I really like to do. In fact, I always say, I'm going to continue to do this work because every day I learn something. When I begin to stop learning something and not be passionate anymore, probably I need to change.
It's good you're still passionate, and you mentioned Franca Sozzani, and it would be nice, as you work with her closely, just to have a picture of her from your eyes.
Well, I had kind of a double bond because she was my editor-in-chief for 22 years and she was also my aunt, but this was very distinguished on work. I remember that when I started working, I was 19 and once I went to her office and I called her Zia, so auntie. She didn't even speak, she looked at me and from that time on, it's Franca. Even in private life, that was the only time, but obviously she was a visionary, someone that really believed in the new generation, and it was an amazing school. Everyone who worked with her always say that we were extremely lucky, and I think that there are many people that worked with her who kind of gained more than others because she was someone that when she saw that you wanted responsibility, she would just give it to you, but even something that you didn't even ever do for the first time. I remember once, it was 2011, and there was a big, huge exhibition in Turin, in Bellaria. It was the anniversary of Italy, so it was the 100 and, I don't remember, but anyway, there was this big exhibition from the beginning of the 900th century to 2000. Yeah, 150 years, yeah. And they asked her to curate from the 60s to 2011. So she called me in the office, listen, there's this, because she usually wanted to sell, the hardest thing or maybe not a nice thing, and she kind of sold it as a beautiful and amazing thing. She said, listen, there's this beautiful exhibition, it's really beautiful, we have to do it. I said, okay, well, it's May, you have to do it for September, and you do it, and see you in September. I never did an exhibition. I said, I don't care, you come back with the exhibition done. And so that was her way, because she knew that, I wanted responsibility with someone else. So that was really a big school, and then she always told a very kind of famous interview she did was, Italian Vogue is written in Italian, sorry. Italian is only spoken by Italians. So the only way to express it in an international way is through images. So that's why Vogue was such a strong magazine, because images spoke beyond what you saw, but they gave messages, and also she has been criticized heavily for her issues, like for the black issue, for the makeover issue, for the oil spread issue, but that was her way of saying that fashion was not just about clothes, but it was a social commitment, and also socially, politically, environmental, and rights, diversity, and all of those elements that always kind of speak every day.
Thank you very much. And Italy. Vogue was in Italian, which is a language spoken only in
Still
Italian.
in Italian.
Still, but of course, Italy is a reference point for the fashion worldwide, not only fashion, of course. Which are the ingredients, and do you think still Italy is an interesting place to study work in fashion, and how do you see the future, especially talent-wise?
Italy is the best place to come and can study fashion, not because I'm Italian, because I think that, I mean, you're in fashion, I guess you realize where you're living right now, what you're absorbing. I mean, Florence is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and there's so much in every region of Italy. I mean, Florence is known for arts and craftsmanship. I mean, you go to Milan and there's about, it's about more commercial, about the allure and everything, but every city you go in Italy, there's always a link to fashion, because there's a production chain which is not just concentrated in one area, but it's everywhere. Every region has its own savoir-faire, and and it's special. So obviously, I think other places to study are good in UK and also like in France. But what they're missing is all the the productive system,
The ecosystem.
the ecosystem of production, which is not just about having, okay, design the clothes and you get it back. You can go and see the process. You're in contact always with people, creative people, artisans. I mean, you can be in contact. You have the chance to be in the best place with obviously the best opportunities. It's something that then you also have to be passionate enough to go and find them, because you really have them in front. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a place where it's like going in a candy shop. I mean, you just have to choose and decide which sweet you wanna try, because you're interested in it. So I think it's one of the best places to be, and also quality-wise of life, even visually. I mean, I think waking up in a city like Florence, and that probably has other difficulties, but also that is really helpful creative-wise. So Italy, I think it's fantastic. The only thing of the problem of Italy is that we Italians are our same. We are our problem, because it's always a matter. I always say that we have a very lack of communication. We are not good communicators. That's our only kind of negative aspect. But I think working on it becomes better. So even here, you could be good communicators or creating platforms to create more awareness of what really happens in Italy. I'm not saying that people don't know. More things can be done.
To communicate loud doesn't mean to communicate well. That's the thing. Speaking about responsibility, I totally agree with you that speaking about sustainability now, it's too much. I mean, the world has lost its appetite, but we're living definitely in an era where ethic and design are speaking to each other more and more. So responsibility, circular economy, inclusion, diversity, and a lot of aspects that belongs to good behavior in a way are now. The good thing is that your generation is kind of teaching us, asking us to develop something that it was not in our initial DNA, because 20 years ago we didn't mind at all about these things. Of course, someone started to speak in a very early stage, and I remember meeting Sara 7, 8, 9 years ago and speaking about sustainability and start to work on that, but of course the market wasn't ready yet. But now these elements are a tool for new designers in the future. How is that developed, and how do you see the future for this relationship between ethic and design?
Well, I think it's something that it's not a trend. It's a fact. I mean, there's no way, as I said before, that you think of doing a project or of your own and not thinking to be responsible, to have an impactful, positive change. Because I mean, if not, you're not gonna go anywhere. Because I mean, obviously, we as an older generation have done already the worst that could have been done. I mean, you are here that you can really make the change. I mean, there's never going to exist a sustainable world, because it's already lost. I mean, it's impossible. I say we, you can think of, making it a little bit better with respect to what's now. So I think it's, as I said, a fact. It's not a trend, and I see the new generation of creatives that are coming. All of them are, in a way, linked to be responsible. And this, I think, it's also linked to two factors. One is that nowadays it's also being a designer or a creative. It's not just about one-man designer, but it's kind of a community. So there are a lot of projects of people that are not just one, but maybe 4 or 5 from all different creative fields, and they do a community or group to express, their creativity in different forms. And maybe then the end result it's close or maybe something else. Also, this is about being communities and not just one man stand. It's important. And then going back to what we have lived in the last 3 years, I mean, COVID has made a lot of changes. Unfortunately, mostly negative, but there's been also positive, which I think that designers now, I say designer, but creatives decide to do a project, it's about wanting to be more responsible and more impactful. And also the fact that when you start a project, I mean, first thing it's the money. I mean, it's useless not to say. So it's also about being more aware about the quality and not the quantity, because this also brings you to kind of, even if you don't have a lot of money, it brings you to be small and also maybe remain small for many years, because then it's not just, it's the main aim of creatives. Obviously, it's about income and making money, but it's not something that it's fundamental like immediately. And this gives you the chance to work with less stress and with thinking of more, in which direction you want to go, who do you want to speak to, who do you want to involve. Instead, like 10 years ago, it was just a matter of, okay, I go out of school or I come out from my experience in a brand, and I say, okay, I launch my collection, but my collection has to be 30 pieces, I want to go and sell and do. So now it's very ponderate, and when people decide to do their own project, they really think it more than twice, 3, 4, maybe even 10 times. Not that before they were not, but it was much very instinctive. Right now, there's more about the study and thinking of how to do it in the right way.
Yeah. Speaking about the communities you were mentioning of fashion designer with artists, with musical artists, is there someone you can mention? Or?
There are many. There are like this. It's 3 of them. They studied at NABA. They called Lessico Familiare. There was one who's on next last year, but there is like Atelier Florania, that they are also from Milan. There are 4 of them. One is a designer, one is an illustrator, one is a hairstylist, and the other one is a art director. There's a lot. There's also these guys I met yesterday, Ascend Beyond. I mean, they're a group of probably 6 or 7 people, and each of them have not even different fields, creative fields, but they're all connected by dots. There's maybe the fashion designer, the illustrator, the art director, the writer, the tech guy, and they're all together, and then the dots are very natural, because when you launch something, you need technology, you need the social network, you need the designer, you need the graphic, you need the aesthetic. I mean, you need someone that thinks about to register the name or to or design and everything. So it's very natural. No, there are a lot.
The like kind of crew that dedicated to fashion. That's very interesting as well, because of course fashion as a creative industry, I mean, match really well with this multidisciplinary approach that is growing more and more. I mean, I think it's a thing of the past 10 years, as we're saying as well, brand-wise. It's less vertical, and it's super interesting when you can really blend and communicate and interact with several different fields. So I think that's for you a great opportunity as well. Because not only by being in a school where there are different disciplines, but as well with your friends, with your crew, with your community as well, developing something which is community-based, which is super interesting, and it's even a weird track. I mean, everyone says that the generation now it's more about individuality, but then more crew and communities are coming out. So it's not true. Just probably cultivating your individuality, but within a logic of a group, which is interesting. I mean, l'unione fa la forza in that case. And you mentioned craftsmanship. You mentioned I mean, intelligence of the hands, and I think Accademia is doing a good job in approaching design both as a subject, theoretical subject, but as well as a practical subject. I think 90% of our time we spoke about craftsmanship since we know each other, and I know you're very passionate about it. And what would you like to say on this subject?
Well, I mean, it's important, especially in Italy, because made in Italy is not just about production factories, but it's about artisans, the craft, the slow fashion, the made to order, the handmade. I mean, it's all these elements that has always distinguished Italy. So I think it's important to have schools like Accademia, because I mean, there was kind of a lack of communication, or even like about stigmatizing that, to be a tailor or a shoe designer making shoes by hand or anything that was related to craft. It was not cool, and people thought that A was not cool, and B that maybe you were not even paid so much. But instead, it's a job that it's always needed. It's necessary. It's very cool because I think then you do things very slowly with a high quality. It's not just about pressing a button and the t-shirt comes out, just making it easier. But I think it's important, and also I mean, as I said, each city has its own story about craft and artisan. I mean, I was in Venice last weekend, and there was this fashion week. I always say don't call it fashion week, but it was a day dedicated to responsibility, and it was involving artisans from Venice. And I told them, well, you know what, we should get a selection of artisans from Venice and let them speak with the new generation of designers, because of the new generation of designers that work in a slow way, because they are upcycling, they're reutilizing other things. So it's interesting to make the clash. And actually, with Franca, we created an exhibition in 2016 at Moda, which was called the craft something. And now
I remember there were some Florentine.
And I involved like 15 artisans, classic from Mazzanti Piume here, from Bevilacqua, Ratti, and Candiani for the denim, and we selected them, and we selected 15 designers, and they did special pieces all together. That was a way of giving visibility to them, and at the same time making understand the new generation that they have to approach themselves more to this kind of realities. So I do think that whatever field and direction you wanna take, I mean, consider it, because it's something that it's losing, but there's high demand, because obviously there's no family-owned maybe tailors and everything. They're closing down because there's not a change, generational change, but there is the market. The market remains market. The problem is that maybe there's not a change of the generation, because maybe children say, no, I don't want to do this because it's boring. But I think it's something that has to be highly considered, and the demand is really high.
And it's happening. I mean, in the States and in UK, especially in UK, the Craft Council, the UK Craft Council, really pushed a lot. Made a project with universities and the government, and they managed really to increase the presence of students within craft courses in some universities, and especially with some funds like even the Queen Elizabeth Fund, that they're investing a lot and giving possibility to get a studio and keep it for 3 years for free, basically. So they're kind of launching and they become new brands. And then as well, craftsmanship is integrating a lot with the new wave of artists that are material artists that work a lot with that, and it's pretty interesting. I would like to mention as well, I think it was Dolce & Gabbana. It was 3 years ago. I came to Florence and did this fashion walk in fashion show in Florence, and they used around 50 different.
But it's important that big brands do. I mean, just think about Dior that lately, for the last 3 seasons, they traveled around the world. Now they were in India. They made all craftsmanship in India. Before they were in Seville, in Spain. So I mean, there is Italy, but there's also the world. I just think that it's very important to pass the message and the awareness that it's something fundamental, especially for the fashion industry.
Yeah, and I think traveling the world and looking for craftsmanship, because that's always my curiosity. It's very interesting how kind of craftsmanship is like the culinary approach of a country. So every country has its own identity. It's kind of the mirror of the identity of a country. as well. The ability of doing the things with the hands is something that everyone has. I mean, there's no new country or old country. I mean, there's country, there's people, and they have been doing as a need things with the hands because, of course, in the medieval period there was no industry, but it is still awake and still alive because it means quality. And I just give an example. It was around 2005, 2006. Basically, do you know in Candici there is one of the main districts for leather accessories in the world? And around that time, most of the fashion companies decided to relocate the production of leather outside, away from Candici. So they chose other countries to do that. And because there was no experience, there was not district, there was no knowledge, the level of the products was not the same as back here. So it was the customer that started to complain and say, I'm not going to pay that amount of money for something that is not produced well, you know. And straight away, one brand started to come back. All the brands came back, and now Candici is much and way stronger than it was. And companies are still investing. I think Saint just got 30,000 square meter in Prada is there, which is there, and so that's very interesting. The things well made are still wanted, and that's good news. And again, the other good news is about responsibility and the message within a product, within a fashion product is still important. So I think these two subjects are super important and it's as important as what you were saying before, because one thing is being a talent, the other thing is being a brand. Between being a talent and being a brand, there is money involved, there is a lot of aspects that they are much bigger than a fashion school, maybe business school or something like that. But on the other side, we are in a global market that as well helps to accelerate the brand by not having huge means, and then you can do little steps, as you were saying. Then, of course, at some point, when you have to get to the second or third stage, you need a help. But the market, I think, is ready now to kind of, looking for brands, and there is more and more interest in new brands. It's very interesting how you can start from scratch now.
No, sure. What you said is it's a normal flow of how things should happen, and I think it's very important that you are aware of these important elements of. You can do as many things as you want. It's just that there are certain pillars that you cannot miss, and these are the ones that cannot be missed right now. Maybe 5 years ago, yes, but not anymore now.
There is an access to information. There is even access to capital in a way. Just crowdfunding, for example, it's a great element and a great platform and a great way as well to have a project funded. Coming back to what it means studying fashion design and something you said at the beginning. You study fashion, but maybe not all of you will be fashion designers, but they can find another place both in the industry or in the creative arts industry and bring what you've been studying and what you've been dreaming about there. So maybe a path starts in a way, but it can finish in another way. I think in Italy there is a strange situation, especially in the production in the industry, because of course there is a need of good fashion designer. But we're all here to say and to confirm that. But there's a lot of jobs that are unfilled at the moment, and tailor, prototyping. How the industry is struggling to find certain skills. Why is that? How can this be solved?
Well, as I was saying, you are studying fashion design, but you are studying fashion, and you're all in a different way creative. So, the fields that are now available in the brands are many more new ones than before. There's all the CSR, sustainability, there is all the social media, there is all now the tech about metaverse, NFT. There are so many new roles that before didn't exist. So it's a matter also of orientating yourself in what you're interested in. Even if it's saying, I want to become a fashion designer, I think you need to be aware of all these new roles about these new subjects about technology, sustainability, and all of that. So I think it's always then the schools that need to, a school cannot have 2,000 courses, but decide to maybe focus on something very, very more specific, because then it happens that obviously for a school it's not easy to, stay aligned with all the changes that you've made. So even the students, I think you have to be passionate and integrate your know-how that you're now studying here, but even in your private, develop and cultivate what you really are passionate about what you're studying. And then obviously it's true that right now the chances and possibilities, for social media, both the fund of the crowdfunding and everything, which 10 years ago wasn't existing, it's a plus that you have. But at the other side, I also see that for the new generation, it's very difficult sometimes to make decisions or decide which road to get, because the input and output of all what's happening around us is so much that sometimes you say, okay, what do I need to do? Do I go to TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever other things there are that's going to be coming out, other new things? Yeah. I just think at a certain point, you make a choice. You don't have to be everywhere. When they tell me, okay, what is your TikTok account? You said, sorry, what? TikTok? No. I know that I'm going to miss something, but I cannot think of being everywhere and everything. And sometimes I think maybe I'm not, aligned to the new generation. But at the same time, you have to choose. You cannot. Like when you go in a shop or getting your grocery, it's not that you're buying everything. You choose. So this is what happens also in life. You need to choose, what you like, and then also stand for something that you believe in.
And let's speak about artificial intelligence. I'm very curious about it, because we speak about artificial intelligence since 10, 20, 30 years. Part of artificial intelligence is already part of our life, and straight away in the past weeks it became very popular, even though the Italian government has stopped it. But there is many different programs that basically allow you to do drawings, images, rendering, and stuff like that. Will there be still a need of fashion designers and stylists, or the artificial intelligence will be told?
I'm gonna be very, very tranchant. I don't really care about artificial intelligence. I'm kind of scared about it, but at the same time, it's gonna happen. And as every technological tool, which is your Instagram, the NFT, the metaverse, video games, whatever, even that, it's a choice, and it's about using it in a smart way. And this is what scares me about artificial intelligence. I don't think that it's gonna substitute, but if it goes out of control, it's gonna happen for sure. So also this of trying to not be magical, like the magic is, then everyone follows it. If I say open the window and throw out yourselves, I don't think you're gonna do it. So the thing is also that make choices. I'm not interested right now. I'm not interested. I'm kind of worried, very worried, and I'm kind of scared because I saw what it can do. Yeah. And so this is, since it's something that we created, we could take control. But the thing is that until now, the world has teachers that the human beings have created a lot of things that then went against them. So this is another way of creating something and use it in an intelligent way. So I'm very scared because it's gonna change a lot, and I think there's gonna be a lot of loss of jobs. But at the same time, that's why, going back to what we were saying, the craft and everything, the artificial intelligence can give you the idea, but cannot create it. So there are also things that think about, even in this process. If we're going towards an artificial intelligence world, something is missing. It's not perfect. So go and find what's missing, because then people are gonna get fed up and wanting to go back immediately on what was there. It's not being nostalgic or 10 years ago, oh, I miss the fax, I miss the phone at my house. I mean, no, it's not about that, but it's about taking what was from the past in the present and developing it for the future.
And then we speak about, I'm always very doubtful because when you speak about artificial intelligence, I ask myself, what's the reference of intelligence? Okay, who's the most intelligent person in the world? You know, probably the president of the most powerful country is the most intelligent person in the world. So you say, okay, the president of the United States is probably the most intelligent person in the world. But then if I think not at the current president, I think at the president before, I have some doubt that I'm referring to the right shape of intelligence. But anyway, that's very interesting, and hopefully that is going to become another tool that designers can use to develop. But the good news, as you say, is that there are some things that need to be done by the hand. And I like to remind everyone that the human being exists since a monkey jumped down from the tree and start to grab the things with the hand. And by the time he started to use the hand in a clever way, the brain grew in their head. I saw some image of how it's going to be the man in 1,000 years if it keeps staying in a digital world, and the brain is becoming smaller. So I think it's very easy to understand how the relationship between the brain and the hand, it makes our brain bigger. So hopefully we keep going to have a bigger and bigger brain in the next years. So shall we open to some questions, some chat with the students?
Questions.
So open to questions. You have the chance to have a person that has been watching and meeting all the main talents in the past years and had a very privileged view on the world of fashion, not only in Italy but all over the world. So it's an opportunity. Okay, you want the microphone or you?
No.
Salve, sono Cristian e volevo chiederle quale consiglio potrebbe dare a uno studente che dopo la laurea vorrebbe appunto entrare nel mondo di Vogue.
Dell'editoria?
Dell'editoria, certo, sì.
Il discorso è che adesso faccio un po'. No, sorry, English, sorry, I switched to Italian. So, regarding to your question, I mean, how do you get into the world of not editorial, about publishing companies or the thing is that, as I said, you need to take opportunities. Like, for example, today I'm here. You ask my email and you send me a CV. So, always taking opportunities to go and meet or to encounter. Moreover, this the technology that you have in hand, Instagram. I mean, with Instagram you can also message Brad Pitt. I think in a way, I don't know. Yes, you don't respond. Anyways, you can connect with anyone if you want, or with LinkedIn. I mean, then maybe they don't respond, but in a way you can get to everyone. And it's always, I remember when I started working in creating Vogue talents, like for the first 2 years, even though I was working for Vogue and I had to go and present myself, leave my card, ask if I could take a picture, sometimes they would say no. I mean, it was a long process. And for the first year and a half, it was me sending emails to designers. And designers will not respond. Then they say, okay, can you send me your bio and your lookbook? And they send you one picture. Your bio and your lookbook, the bio and the lookbook. Then the lookbook and then not the bio. I mean, it's a lot of work and patience. So the thing is that then, obviously, it converted, and now I'm completely overwhelmed by requests, which I have to say, I answer to 70% of the people that write to me. But I can consider myself probably a case, a desperate case, I don't know, but actually no, I'm joking. But so the thing, going back to your question, I mean, Florence, Pitti, there are twice a year that there's so many people coming to the city. I mean, try not, I mean, I know that some of you are shy or afraid, but I mean, we're all human beings ourselves, so I mean, probably you can encounter someone good or someone that doesn't want to, but I mean, you have these chances, so the thing is, don't ever think that it's impossible, because it's not. When I started Vogue Talents, obviously it was a team, it's always about a team. Then there's always someone that appeals more than others, in this case it was me, but if it was not for my team, I mean, we couldn't do what we did. And for example, I mean, the world is big and we were international, so people used to write me, Africa, whatever, oh, listen, I'm very passionate and I would like to write for Vogue Talents. And I said, okay. Never met the people for like 5 or 8 years, because one was in Nigeria, the other one was, I don't know, in Sweden, the other one is in Los Angeles, the other one in Korea. And all these people that worked for Vogue Talents for many years, I never met them, or maybe, yeah, once or twice if I went there. And then they all came at the Vogue Talents 10th anniversary, because they were working for Vogue Talents for like 4, 6, 8 years. So, and what they did is just wrote me. I mean, this is, so don't miss the thing that that's impossible. So, I mean, I think you have to be not shy, forget to be shy, be bold and think that, I mean, why don't we give it a try to write to, said, Brad Pitt didn't answer you, well, next, you know? So this is my end of my, my suggestion.
I might add one thing. I mean, it's of course Vogue. It's probably in the dream of most of the people that study fashion, but as well, I don't know. We were speaking before about a common friend, Andrea Battilla. You probably heard about him, and I work with him. Sara now is working with him. It's a normal person like us. He speaks well about fashion, and it's probably his posts are really more than some Vogue posts. And it's just, he doesn't write for any magazine, and he's an independent thinker, and he made a job out of that, you know. So it's not only Vogue. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I was talking about in general, not about Vogue. No, it's not just Vogue. I mean, as Alessandro was saying, I mean, Andrea was in the industry for a long time. Then he's an excellent writer, and he decided to begin to write very transparent, because he doesn't work for the magazine, so he's very transparent, very critic at the same time. So even very respected, also very criticized. So even that, I mean, that could be another way of getting attention to.
Allora faccio una domanda io. Quale sarebbe un consiglio che potrebbe dare a noi nuovi designer, quale sia il modo migliore per farci conoscere e comunque arrivare all'obiettivo, ecco?
Well, for a fashion designer that starts from zero and not known, as I said before, I mean, you have to create your pillars, which have to remain with you until the end. I mean, this is something very important, because I've seen so many designers that listen to too many people, and then they are kind of influenced, and then they lose a little bit their track. So, I mean, put down your pillars. Those pillars have to stay with you wherever. It's like your kid, you cannot lose it, you know, and keep it tight. Listen to people, but then you have to listen to yourself, to your heart, your head, and the vision you have. Because I always tell to designers, I never said, and I'm not gonna ever do that, to tell a designer, you have to change job, or this is not good, or no way, I mean, next. Because I'm not in the position to do it. I mean, if you come to me, it's because you have a vision, you have an idea, you believe in it. What I'm gonna do is, whether I'm gonna say good or bad, it's gonna be constructive of why it's good or bad. Because someone that comes to me, and I don't think it's bad, I think, well, there's something wrong. It's more about putting la pulce nell'orecchio and saying, okay, we decided to do a homeware collection just for, I don't know, for housewives or women that's, I don't know, work at home and it has to be sustainable and this is, and I say, okay, first question, why are you sustainable? Okay, because it's organic cotton. Where do you get organic cotton? I don't know. Okay, so you need to know. So organic cotton, you get it from Ghana. Okay, who's doing the organic cotton? How long it takes to do it? What is the amount of water to use? Is that person has been paid good? I mean, you have to be always very aware of what you're doing. You have to know everything. If everything of what you produce, you show, you have to know it by heart. Like when you go in school and you have to learn, la versione latino, whatever. You have to know it by heart. And this is, I'm saying this because this is fundamental. Because since everything goes fast, people just think that I do a cute, smart t-shirt brand and it's enough. No. Because in a way, but that's another question, is the problem with fast fashion and everything. By you being new and doing something new from zero, you have to start off saying, okay, I do my project and I want to create a project for my customer that has to begin to think as all of you. That you go into a shop and if you buy something, everyone needs to think, to ask the person, where does it come from? Who made it? Which mostly 80% of the people will never be able to answer you, but you have to get used to do this. And on the other hand, you designer have to do this service. And this is very important. And going back to how to get, obviously, visibility, there's a lot. There's many opportunities. Like fashion designers, there's its contest in triennali, visibility, there's vita, moda, there is the social media, there is Instagram. That I always say, Instagram, you don't have to show it as a show off of your personal life, but it's like having a window shop in Monte Napoleone or Sant'Onore. If you really use it in a smart way, it can take you very far away. And I'm saying Instagram or even TikTok, which I don't even know how to use it, but all these social media, they have a very strong power, but you have to use them in a smart way that then gives relevance to the people that follow you. Because I think you have to be always very transparent and also very coherent with what you do. It's not that you follow the flow. Because following the flow, then you get lost.
Sì, accendi il microfono con il...
Totalmente. Mi sento. Lei ha conosciuto designer stranieri, italiani, e consiglia di uscire dall'Italia, cioè se migliora l'esperienza, la visione o no?
I think that sometimes students ask me, okay, I'm finishing tomorrow, shall I go and work for a brand or shall I do my own thing? You have to do what you feel like. I've met designers that have begun their collection after they finished school, and after maybe 1 or 2 years, they realize that it's not easy, that they need more experience, so decide maybe to freeze their collection, not everyone, but mostly, and have experience with a designer somewhere else. So going back to your question, it's about the experience. Where? It doesn't matter, but it's about the experience, and obviously, you have a wish list of with who you would want to work with. And usually this wish list, the first time, it's not wished. It's gonna be someone else, but you do it because, the experience is fundamental. But at the same time, if you think that you want to do, your own brand as soon as you go out, do it. It's nothing's gonna happen. You're in an age, as I said, talent doesn't have an age. If you become successful at 30, 35, 40, it's okay. The importance is that what you did before gave you experience, gave you values, gave you even the know-how of thinking, okay, I started as a fashion designer, but now I decided to be, a visual merchandising for someone, or I decided to work in the movies or in a theater as a costume designer. mean, so that's why I always say that talent doesn't have age. Contests give limits to the age, because I do understand that, I mean, it's about also giving space to the new generation, but it doesn't really have an age talent. So going back to your question, it's about the experience. It's not that here it's better than London or London is better than here. It's just about the good experience, and it could be an experience even outside Florence in a remote, village or somewhere else, but it's about experience, because then after your first experience, after a while, after 3, 4, 5 months, you already have a different idea of what you want to do next.
Yeah, and Sara mentioned before a very interesting platform called ETS platform. Just in case you don't know, it's based in Trieste. It's called ETS, and it's a platform where you can basically submit your portfolio, and it's an archive of the past 25 years of 20 years of portfolio from all over the world. It's very funny the fact that not very randomly Italians get selected, so I think it's a challenge as well to convince Barbara Franchini as well to get. That's I think it's a part of the.
But that's different. That's a different thing. It's not that. No. I mean, it's an international. So I mean, she's been criticized because Italian schools were not chosen, but it's not her that chooses. We are in the jury. We see portfolios. We don't even see the name and the school that comes from. So it's about selection. The only lack, I have to say, of schools in Italy, which now became better, it was the presentation of the portfolio. I mean, I saw portfolios from all over the world, and sometimes when I saw, and this is a critique to all Italian fashion schools I always did, which now are getting better, is about doing portfolios with lack of creativity and also format and everything, because basically it's the school that gives too many restrictions of how to do a portfolio. So now I'm saying something probably against the system.
No.
I'm just saying that
I think this is super important.
It's very important that when you're in school you express yourself and don't be afraid. And it's the time that you can really break the boundaries and be bold. So like it comes from everywhere. We see like 1,000 portfolios, and then lately Italians are coming out because the quality of the portfolios and the presentation are becoming more better. And then you always have to think that when you construct your portfolio is not going to always travel with you. So you're not always going to be there to explain what the portfolio means. So your portfolio needs to speak by itself. So that's very important. But anyways, there's also this other platform called ArtFred, which is very interesting because there are all kind of applications for design, fashion, jewelry, architecture. It's ArtFred. But there's a lot. I mean, you can follow, I don't ask to follow me, but if you follow my Instagram, I always look at the opportunities, for designer contests or platforms which they can express.
Yeah, I think what Sara is saying at the end is a perfect ending of this conference, and I think it's a great message for you. I mean, your CV as a fashion designer, it's a paper for toilet, basically. I mean, your identity is your portfolio. Of course, your portfolio is made by something physical, by your social media, and everything you have to represent yourself. A portfolio can be on paper, a portfolio can be on linen, a portfolio can be a performance. But it's extremely important that you work on your portfolio at its best, because Sara says something amazingly right. You think your portfolio is great, but then you send it to someone and you're not there to explain it. So it's fundamental that you even show it to someone, you bring it to someone, you get the feedback on what you're doing. But your passport, as we have a passport traveling in different countries, your passport in the future, it's your portfolio, which will be evolving, but has to say exactly who you are, and it's important as well that you make sure that a portfolio, yes, represent yourself, but mainly and basically is to be able to get attention from the person who's reading. Because sometimes people get too involved in doing something because I like to do it like that, and it's important to
free yourself, but you have to think about, as a designer, to the user, who take it in the hands, who open it, what he can see, and how he can get an emotion from that, and then give a call to that number, and you reply on the other phone and say, hey, I'm here. No, so that's very important. Sara, it's been super, super nice.
Thank you.